Hello everyone, and welcome to my YNR Official 24 channel. Victor muttered under his breath, his voice hoarse, as if saying the word could erase the truth. He had ordered the DNA test in a moment of suspicion, never imagining it would detonate his world. Matt had come into his life like a storm, brilliant, ruthless, ambitious in a way that felt disturbingly familiar. Victor had told himself it was coincidence that many men carried hunger in their eyes, that not every threat was blood. But now the truth stood naked before him, stripping away every excuse. The son he never knew. The child he abandoned without ever realizing it. The room seemed to close in around him as memories surged back. Long nights, reckless choices, a woman whose name he had forced himself to forget because remembering her meant facing the kind of guilt Victor Newman did not allow himself to feel. He clenched his jaw, straightened his shoulders, and told himself he was still Victor Newman. He controlled outcomes. He did not panic. And yet his reflection in the darkened glass betrayed him, eyes wide, face pale, fear etched into lines usually reserved for fury. A knock at the door made him flinch. That alone shocked him more than the DNA results. Victor Newman did not flinch. But today, everything was different. The door opened without waiting for an answer, and Matt stepped inside, closing it behind him with deliberate calm. He wore the same confident smirk he always did, but his eyes, those eyes, were sharp, searching, already knowing. Victor didn't need to ask how long Matt had been standing there, or how much he had overheard. The silence between them stretched, thick with unspoken truths, until Matt's gaze dropped to the desk, to the paper, to the photograph. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "So," Matt said quietly, his voice steady but loaded, "you finally have it." Victor's throat tightened. "You went behind my back," he snapped, grasping for authority like a lifeline. "You manipulated this." Matt let out a slow breath, almost amused. "No, Victor. I didn't have to manipulate anything. The truth has a way of surfacing, especially when it's been buried this deep." He took a step forward, then another. Each footfall echoed like a drumbeat of doom. "I wondered how long it would take you to connect the dots." Victor slammed his hand on the desk. "Enough." His voice thundered, but it wavered at the edges. "You don't walk in here and make accusations without consequences." Matt laughed softly, shaking his head. "Still trying to intimidate me? Even now?" He leaned forward, bracing his hands on the desk, his face inches from Victor's. "Look at me. Really look at me." Victor did, and that was his mistake. Because in that moment, he didn't just see Matt. He saw himself. The same sharp bone structure. The same defiant tilt of the chin. The same fire that had driven Victor from nothing to everything. The realization hit him like a blow to the chest. "You already know," Matt continued, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "The DNA just confirmed what your instincts have been screaming." He straightened slowly, his expression hardening. "You are my father." The words echoed through the room, reverberating off the walls, sinking into Victor's bones. Time seemed to fracture as Victor staggered back a step, his hand reaching instinctively for the chair behind him. For the first time in decades, Victor Newman had no immediate response. No strategy. No counterattack. Just shock. "That's impossible," Victor finally said, though the conviction was gone. "I would have known." "Would you?" Matt shot back. "You were powerful even then. Untouchable. You swept through lives like they were disposable." His jaw tightened. "My mother tried to find you."
"She tried."
But Victor Newman doesn't look back. The name, Mother, hit Victor harder than any accusation. He swallowed hard, his mind spiraling back to a woman with fierce eyes and a fragile smile, a woman he had loved in his own reckless way but deemed inconvenient to his ambition. "She never told me," he said quietly. "She didn't need to," Matt replied. "You made it clear what mattered most to you." Silence fell again, heavier now, layered with decades of regret. Victor sank into the chair, suddenly feeling every one of his years. "Why now?" he asked. "Why come to me now?" Matt's expression darkened. Because you destroyed my life without even knowing it. Because I grew up watching you from a distance, seeing the empire you built, the family you protected, while I had nothing. And because fate has a cruel sense of humor, it put me right in your path." He paused, then added, "And I wanted you to know." Victor closed his eyes briefly, as if bracing himself. Images of Nikki, Victoria, Nick, Adam, his children, his legacy, flashed through his mind. How would they react to this? How would Nikki look at him, knowing there was another son, born of betrayal and abandonment? How would Adam, already fractured by a lifetime of feeling unwanted, survive learning Victor had failed another child even more profoundly? Panic coiled in Victor's chest, sharp and unfamiliar. This wasn't just about Matt. This was about the collapse of the carefully constructed world Victor had spent his life defending. "You can't tell anyone," Victor said suddenly, his eyes snapping open. "This stays between us." Matt smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Still trying to control the narrative. He shook his head. "I didn't come here to beg for recognition. I came here to claim the truth." Victor stood, towering despite the storm raging inside him. "You think blood gives you power over me?" "No," Matt replied evenly. "But it gives me leverage. And it gives you something you can't erase." He glanced at the photo again. A past. Victor followed his gaze, his chest tightening as guilt finally pierced the armor he had worn for a lifetime. "If you're my son," he said slowly, "then everything changes." Matt's eyes hardened. "That depends on you." Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance, a storm gathering as if the universe itself responded to the seismic shift inside the Newman ranch. Victor Newman, the man who feared nothing, stood at the edge of a truth that threatened to destroy everything he believed about himself. And Matt, the son forged in absence and resentment, had finally stepped out of the shadows, ready to claim what destiny had denied him. The DNA results were only the beginning. The photograph was only the proof. What came next would tear families apart, rewrite loyalties, and force Victor Newman to face the one enemy he had never conquered, the consequences of his own past. Victor Newman stood motionless long after Matt's last words lingered in the air, the silence between them pulsing with unshed rage and unspoken grief. The storm outside intensified, rain slamming against the windows as though nature itself demanded acknowledgement of the truth that had just been exposed. Victor prided himself on control of empires, of people, of outcomes, but this revelation had stripped him bare. The DNA results lay on the desk like a death sentence to the man he thought he was. For the first time in his life, Victor Newman felt hunted by his own past. Matt, meanwhile, watched him closely, studying every flicker of emotion, every tightening of the jaw. He had imagined this moment 1,000 times, Victor denying him, roaring, threatening, but this shaken silence was far more satisfying. It meant the truth had landed exactly where Matt wanted it to. Deep. Permanent. Unavoidable. "You look surprised," Matt said quietly, breaking the tension. "I always wondered what it would take to finally rattle Victor Newman." Victor's voice came out low and dangerous. "Do not mistake shock for weakness." Matt smirked. "I don't. I recognize it. I've lived with it my entire life." Victor turned away, gripping the back of his chair as memories surged forward without mercy. He remembered the woman now, Elena. Fierce, stubborn, unwilling to bend to his will. He had loved her in the way a younger Victor loved, recklessly, selfishly, believing he could walk away without consequence. She had disappeared from his life after one brutal argument, and he had let her go, convinced that ambition justified everything. He had been wrong, and now that mistake stood before him, fully grown, armed with the same steel spine that had built Newman Enterprises. "You came here for revenge," Victor said finally. Matt shook his head. "No. Revenge would be too simple. I came for acknowledgement." Victor laughed bitterly. "Acknowledgement doesn't erase years of absence." "No," Matt replied, "but it changes the future." The word hit Victor harder than he expected. future. Everything he had ever done, every ruthless decision, had been for the future of his family. And now, standing in front of him, was a son he had never protected, never guided, never even named. Before Victor could respond, the door creaked open. Nikki Newman froze mid-step. She took in the scene instantly. The storm outside, Victor's haunted expression, Matt standing far too close, the papers scattered across the desk. Her instincts screamed that something was terribly wrong. Nikki had spent decades reading Victor Newman. She knew every shade of his fury, every mask of confidence. This look, this was fear. What's going on? Nikki asked cautiously. Victor straightened instinctively. Nothing you need to concern yourself with. Matt turned slowly, his eyes locking onto Nikki with a calculating calm. Hello, Nikki. We finally meet under honest circumstances. Nikki frowned. I'm sorry, honest? Victor's jaw clenched. Matt, leave. Why? Matt countered smoothly. She deserves to know the truth, doesn't she? She's been married to it for decades. Nikki stepped closer, alarm flashing across her face. Victor? Victor didn't answer. The silence was answer enough. Nikki's gaze dropped to the desk, to the DNA report, to the photograph. She picked it up slowly, her hands trembling as she read the results. Her breath caught. Oh my God, she whispered. Victor closed his eyes. Matt spoke clearly, deliberately. He's my father. The room seemed to spin as Nikki staggered back a step, clutching the photograph like it might shatter. That's not possible, she said, her voice cracking. Victor would have told me. Victor opened his eyes, pain flickering across his face. I didn't know. Nikki looked at him sharply. You didn't know, or you didn't want to know? The question cut deeper than any accusation Matt had thrown. Victor had no answer. Matt watched the exchange with quiet intensity. My mother died believing Victor Newman abandoned us, he said. She protected me from the truth until the end. But secrets have a way of surfacing, especially in this family. Nikki's eyes filled with tears. All those years, she whispered. All those lectures about loyalty, about family. Victor stepped toward her. Nikki. She held up a hand. Don't. Her voice shook with betrayal. Just don't. The door opened again, and this time fate delivered the final blow. Victoria Newman walked in. She stopped short, sensing tension immediately. Why does it feel like I just walked into a crime scene? Nick followed behind her, then Adam, drawn by the storm, by instinct, by destiny. Victor's heart sank. Matt turned slowly, his gaze sweeping across the Newman children. Perfect timing, he said softly. Family reunions are always more memorable with surprises. Adam narrowed his eyes. Who the hell are you? Matt smiled, cold, triumphant. I'm your brother. The room erupted. That's not funny, Nick snapped. Victoria's gaze flew to Victor. Dad. Adam's expression darkened instantly, something feral igniting behind his eyes. Another secret, he growled. Another son you forgot to mention? Victor raised his voice. Enough. But it was too late. Matt stepped forward, holding up the DNA report like evidence in a trial. The results don't lie. Victor Newman is my father. Adam laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. Of course he is. Nikki turned away, unable to watch as decades of carefully constructed lies collapsed in seconds. Victoria shook her head. Dad, tell me this isn't true. Victor met her eyes, and that was all it took. Nick ran a hand through his hair. Unbelievable. Adam stared at Matt, his jaw clenched tight. So that's why you've been circling Newman Enterprises, he said. Why you've been playing power games. Matt didn't deny it. I wanted to see if blood really does recognize blood. Adam stepped closer, his voice deadly calm. You don't get to waltz in here and claim what I fought my entire life to earn. Matt held his ground. Funny. I was fighting too, just without a father to sabotage me. The words landed like a grenade. Victor slammed his fist on the desk. Both of you, stop it. Adam turned on him. You don't get to control this anymore. You created this mess. Silence followed, heavy, irreversible. Victor's voice broke for the first time. I never meant to hurt any of you. Adam scoffed. You always say that. Matt watched Victor closely, finally seeing the cracks in the armor. This wasn't the untouchable titan he'd built in his mind. This was a man confronting the wreckage of his own legacy. I'm not here to destroy you, Matt said quietly. I'm here to be acknowledged. Victor looked at him, truly looked at him, and nodded once. Then you will be. Adam stiffened. What does that mean? It means, Victor said, voice steady but heavy, Matt is a Newman. Nikki gasped. Victoria whispered, Dad. Adam's eyes burned with fury. You're doing this again. You're choosing another son. Victor shook his head. I'm choosing the truth. Thunder cracked outside, shaking the walls of the ranch as the Newman family stood fractured, their future uncertain. Matt had crossed the threshold he'd dreamed of his entire life, but now that he stood inside the empire, he realized something chilling. Being Victor Newman's son wasn't a victory. It was a war. And the worst was yet to come. The silence that followed Victor's declaration, Matt is a Newman, was more devastating than any shouted accusation. It settled over the room like ash after an explosion, coating every relationship, every memory, every fragile bond the Newman family had built. Nikki was the first to move. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply turned and walked toward the door, her heels echoing with finality across the hardwood floor. Nikki, Victor called out, his voice stripped of command. Please. She stopped, her back still to him. I spent my life defending you, she said quietly. I defended every mistake, every betrayal, every child you damaged in the name of control. But this, she turned slowly, her eyes glassy with pain. This rewrites our entire marriage. Matt watched intently as Nikki looked at him, not with hatred, but with a profound, aching sadness. You're not the villain here, she said softly. You're the proof. With that, she walked out. The door closed, and something inside Victor broke. Victoria exhaled shakily. Mom leaving like that, this isn't just another scandal, Dad. This is permanent. Victor nodded grimly. I know. Nick crossed his arms, frustration etched into his face. So what now? Do we throw a welcome party? Hand him a corner office. Matt's lips twitched. I don't need your charity. Adam let out a bitter laugh. No, you want something better. You want legitimacy. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. Careful what you wish for. Being a Newman doesn't come with love. It comes with scars. Matt met Adam's stare without blinking. I already have those. Victor raised a hand. This conversation is over for tonight. No, Adam snapped. This conversation is just beginning. Adam turned to Matt, circling him slowly, like a predator, sizing up a rival. You think showing up with DNA results makes you special? You think that makes you entitled to what I had to bleed for? Matt's jaw tightened. I think it means I was robbed of a choice. Adam stopped inches from him. So was I. The tension between them was electric, volatile. Victor recognized it instantly, the same destructive chemistry that had defined his relationship with Adam for years. And now, he'd created it again. Enough, Victor said sharply. You're brothers. Adam's eyes flashed. Then why does it feel like you just replaced me? Victor recoiled. That is not. You always do this, Adam continued, his voice rising. You bring in a new son, a new project, a new redemption arc, and suddenly I'm expendable again. Matt finally spoke, his tone steady but raw. I'm not here to erase you. Adam scoffed. You already did. Victoria stepped between them. Stop. Both of you. She turned to Matt, studying him carefully. You say you want acknowledgement. Fine. But don't pretend you didn't plan this. You didn't just stumble into our lives. Matt didn't deny it. I planned to confront him. I didn't plan to care. That surprised Victor. Matt looked at him then, really looked at him, and his voice softened despite himself. I spent years hating you. But standing here, seeing the damage, I realized something. He swallowed hard. You didn't just abandon me. You abandoned everyone eventually. The words hit Victor harder than any punch. Nick shook his head. This family is imploding. Victor straightened, instinctively slipping back into leadership mode. Then we stabilize it. We handle this internally. Adam laughed again. You don't get to decide that. Victor turned to him sharply. I built this family. And you're destroying it. Adam shot back. Matt exhaled slowly. I'll leave. Everyone turned to him. I didn't come here to tear your family apart, Matt said. If my presence does that, I'll step back for now. Victor stepped forward.
No.
Matt hesitated. You don't disappear again, Victor said firmly. Not this time. For a fleeting moment, something like hope flickered in Matt's eyes. But it was gone just as quickly. Then understand this, Matt said. I won't live in your shadow. I won't be your secret. And I won't be controlled. Victor nodded. Fair. Adam muttered. We'll see. Matt turned toward the door, pausing beside Adam. For what it's worth, I never wanted to be your enemy. Adam didn't respond. After Matt left, the room felt emptier and somehow more dangerous. Victoria rubbed her temples. Mom won't forgive this easily. Victor sank into his chair, suddenly exhausted. I know, Nick sighed. And the board? If this leaks. It won't, Victor snapped. Not yet. Adam turned toward the door. You can't bury this. I'm not trying to, Victor replied. I'm trying to survive it. Adam stopped, looking back at his father with something dangerously close to pity. You should be afraid, he said quietly. Because this time, you don't control the fallout. When Adam left, Victor was alone. He picked up the photograph again. The woman he'd lost, the child he'd never known. His hands trembled as regret finally overwhelmed pride. For the first time in his life, Victor Newman whispered a truth meant only for himself. I failed you. Outside, Matt stood in the rain, staring up at the Newman ranch, his blood, his legacy, his battlefield. He had achieved what he'd chased his entire life. But power came at a price. And the war for the Newman family had only just begun.